For 27 years, Deborra-Lee Furness and Hugh Jackman were Hollywood's gold standard of lasting love. He called her his destiny, his lightest and most optimistic person. Then, the silence broke. After 2 years of quiet dignity, Deborra-Lee has finally spoken. And what she has revealed is not about anger, but about a profound wound that cuts deeper than anyone knew. This is the story of what happens when a fairy tale ends, and one woman finds her voice again. Before the silence, before the heartbreak, there was a story that felt destined. It began in 1995 on the set of an Australian television show called Corelli. Hugh Jackman was a relatively unknown actor at the time. Deborra-Lee Furness was already an established star. But something happened on that set that would change both of their lives forever. They connected, not just as colleagues, but as two people who recognized something special in each other. The romance moved quickly. By 1996, they were married. It was a quiet ceremony, nothing like the grand Hollywood affairs the world would later become accustomed to. But for them, it was perfect. From that moment on, Hugh Jackman often spoke of their bond as something almost magical. "Being married to you, Deb, is as natural as breathing," he wrote on their 25th anniversary. These were not just empty words. He told interviewers that he knew they were destined to be together from nearly the moment they met. He said she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. For over 2 decades, they built a family. They chose to adopt, welcoming their son Oscar and later their daughter Ava. Jackman often spoke about how becoming a father had transformed him. He credited Deborra-Lee with being the anchor of their family, the person who brought the most joy and stability into his life. To the watching world, they were a rare Hollywood success story. In an industry where marriages often crumble under the weight of fame and pressure, theirs seemed unshakable. Their love wasn't just real, it was inspiring. It gave people hope that true love could exist even in the brightest of spotlights. But a story that seems so perfect often hides complexities beneath the surface. The foundation of this golden era was about to be tested in ways no one anticipated. And when the test came, it would reveal cracks that had been growing for a long time. In September 2023, the fairy tale came to a halt. Hugh Jackman and Deborra-Lee Furness released a joint statement announcing their separation after 27 years of marriage. The news sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. Fans who had followed their love story for decades were stunned. This was a couple that had seemed immune to the pressures of Hollywood. If they couldn't make it work, what hope was there for anyone else? The statement itself was graceful. It spoke of gratitude, love, and kindness as they navigated this transition. It seemed amicable on the surface, a peaceful parting of ways between two people who had simply grown apart. That was the narrative they wanted the world to believe. And for a moment, many accepted it. But the public quickly sensed that the reality might be more complicated. Almost immediately, rumors began to swirl. Jackman had been starring in a Broadway musical, The Music Man, alongside actress Sutton Foster. They had undeniable chemistry on stage. Whispers of a connection between them began to surface. It was suggested that the relationship had started during the run of the show in 2022, which overlapped with the end of his marriage. The timing was suspicious. People began to ask questions. Was this really a peaceful separation, or was there more to the story? Throughout it all, Deborra-Lee remained silent. While Jackman was seen in public with Foster, Furness maintained a dignified distance. She did not speak to the press, nor did she share her side of the story. Her silence was palpable. It was a silence that spoke volumes, leaving the public to wonder what truly happened behind closed doors. Some saw it as grace under pressure. Others saw it as a woman too hurt to speak. Nearly 2 years after the separation, and after finalizing their divorce in 2025, Deborra-Lee Furness finally broke her silence. The world had been waiting. Speculation had grown. And when she spoke, the words she chose were not what many expected. They were not filled with anger or bitterness. Instead, they were filled with a profound sense of hurt that could not be faked. In a public statement, she offered a rare glimpse into her emotional state. She spoke of a traumatic journey of betrayal. She described the end of her marriage as a profound wound that cuts deep. These were strong words, chosen carefully. They revealed a level of pain that had been hidden from public view for almost 2 years. Deborra-Lee was no longer hiding. She was finally letting the world see what she had been carrying alone. This was the first public acknowledgement of the pain she had endured. While she did not name Hugh Jackman directly, the subtext was unmistakable. This was a woman who had been deeply hurt by someone she trusted completely. She spoke of gaining knowledge and wisdom through the experience. While she acknowledged the pain, she framed it as part of a larger journey of personal growth. Her words were not vengeful. They were reflective. They showed a woman trying to make sense of something that made no sense at all. She spoke of returning to oneself and living within one's own integrity and boundaries. For her, this was the true definition of liberation and freedom. It was a quiet, powerful statement that changed the narrative completely. No longer was she the silent ex-wife. She was now a woman speaking her truth on her own terms. Deborra-Lee's statement sent a ripple of shock through Hugh Jackman's world. Sources close to Jackman revealed that he was blindsided by her words. He had apparently believed they had an unwritten understanding to keep their issues private and not publicly trash one another. Her decision to speak so openly about her pain was unexpected. It broke the agreement he thought they had. He was said to be heartbroken by her words, but also extremely disappointed. The mutual friends of the couple were also taken by surprise. Furness's statement was far more direct and emotional than anyone had anticipated. They had expected her to remain quiet, as she had done for nearly 2 years. But Deborra-Lee had clearly decided that silence was no longer serving her. She needed to speak. She needed to heal. Despite the shock and hurt he reportedly felt, Jackman refused to retaliate. Sources emphasized that he still loved and respected Furness and would not let the divorce become ugly. He chose to remain silent, deciding not to respond to her words with a statement of his own. This decision not to engage showed that while the public story was shifting, the private dynamics were still deeply complicated. The pressure of the public gaze added a layer of complexity to an already painful situation. Every move was watched. Every word was analyzed. His silence, however, only made the world more curious about the truth. It was a tense standoff, where the most powerful words were the ones that were left unspoken. He had said nothing. She had said everything. And the world was left to fill in the blanks. As Jackman's relationship with Sutton Foster deepened, reports emerged that his children, Oscar and Ava, were not entirely supportive of the new romance. Sources claimed that the children, who were incredibly protective of their mother, were struggling to accept Jackman's new partner. This was a difficult situation for any family. But when the family was in the public eye, the pressure was even greater. Oscar and Ava had grown up watching their parents' loving relationship. They had seen their father speak so beautifully about their mother. To now see him with someone else was jarring. Their allegiance to Deborra-Lee was strong. They had watched her maintain her dignity through the separation and divorce. They were not about to let her be forgotten or replaced. This created a difficult situation for Jackman. He was reportedly caught between his desire to move forward with Foster and his loyalty to his children. He wanted their approval. He wanted them to be part of any future ceremony. But the children's resistance made that difficult. The children's reaction was reportedly one of the reasons Jackman had to put his wedding plans to Foster on hold. He did not want to upset his children. It was important to him that they be part of any future ceremony. This family tension added a new layer to the story. It showed how the personal lives of public figures are often complicated by family dynamics. The children's allegiance to their mother showed that despite the divorce, Deborra-Lee was not alone in navigating the aftermath. She had her children, and they had her back. With the dust finally beginning to settle on the divorce and the public fallout, Deborra-Lee Furness began to look towards the future. Insiders reported that she was considering the idea of writing a memoir. The project was described as a way to reclaim her voice after years of being known primarily as Hugh Jackman's wife. It was an opportunity to tell her own story, in her own words, and to set the record straight. For decades, her identity had been tied to his. She was Hugh Jackman's wife. She was the woman who stood beside him at premieres and award shows. She was the anchor that kept him grounded. But in all of that, her own story had been overshadowed. She had been a successful actress in her own right before they met. She had built a career and a reputation. But over time, those accomplishments were eclipsed by his rising fame. The memoir, if it came to be, would be the first time she fully explained her side of the story. It would allow her to speak directly to the public and address the years of speculation. She could finally share her truth in her own time and on her own terms. It was a move that could give her the closure she had never been able to find. The prospect of her telling all was a major development. It had the potential to reshape the entire narrative, giving her control over her own history for the first time in years. No longer would she be defined by her marriage to Hugh Jackman. She would be defined by her own words, her own experiences, and her own journey. The book deal was a reclaiming of her identity. And for Deborra-Lee, that was everything. At its core, Deborra-Lee Furness's journey is one of profound heartbreak, but also of resilience and self-discovery. Her own words, spoken at the end of her marriage, reveal her ultimate philosophy. She believes that returning to oneself, living within one's own integrity, values, and boundaries, is the true definition of liberation and freedom. This was the lesson she took from 3 decades of life, love, and loss. The story of Deborra-Lee Furness and Hugh Jackman is not just a tale of a celebrity divorce. It is a story about the end of a love story that the world believed in. It is a reminder that even the most carefully curated public image can hide private pain. Behind the smiles and the red carpet appearances, there were struggles that no one knew about. And when the end came, it was not easy. It was painful. It was devastating. Deborra-Lee's choice to break her silence, to speak her truth, was not an act of vengeance. It was an act of self-preservation. She had spent nearly 2 years holding everything inside. She had watched as the narrative was shaped by others. She had watched as her ex-husband moved on, seemingly without looking back. But she knew that to heal, she needed to speak. She needed to let the world know that she was more than just an ex-wife. She was a woman who had been deeply hurt, but who was determined to find her way back to herself. It was a step towards reclaiming her own identity. It was a step towards moving forward on her own terms. It was a step towards finding her own path to healing. The final chapter of her story is not yet written, and that is perhaps the most hopeful part of all. The future is unwritten. And for the first time in a long time, Deborra-Lee Furness is the one holding the pen.